Now we're going to talk a little bit about fat loss. This is a really, I mean, everywhere you look, there's marketing, there's talk about, there's people struggling with fat loss. I think this may offer you some insight as to why you aren't losing the weight you might want to lose, and maybe a couple of things are going to click for you in terms of what you can do differently without suffering, without starving yourself. That is not good. That's not health. That's not wellness. That's not what the show is about. My experience with fat loss. So I grew up. I was the heavy kid. I was the fat kid. I was overweight. I was bullied. I dealt with a lot of crap when it came to fat loss, like a lot of people do. That's one of the reasons why I really like seeing today body positivity in general. Not because I think that people shouldn't try to better their health, and if you are overweight, lose the weight. I do think that's my personal belief. I think health is different than body positivity. I do think, though, you need to start at a place of loving yourself and come from a place first of compassion and being gentle with yourself and loving yourself. And it's going to make it a lot easier for you to lose the weight because if you screw up, and you will screw up, forgive yourself. You forgive yourself and move on. Then you go forward and you figure out how you're going to conquer this thing. And I'm going to try and help you do that. So I was the fat kid growing up, certainly overweight. And then when I was 12 or 13 years old, maybe a little younger, I started going to the gym with my dad. And this was really, really cool because my dad was easily in the best shape out of all the dads. My dad's still in fantastic shape, which is really frustrating if you're the fat kid growing up. Um, and I started training with him because I wanted to be like him, and it opened up a new world to me. I started seeing results very quickly training in the gym. Genetically, I had some predisposition, I guess. I remember one guy in the gym, Frank, he'd say, he called me man child. Man child, which was actually nice to hear when you're 12 years old. So I'm lifting weights and all that stuff. And it also was an outlet for the things in my life. Kind of when you're 12, 13, you're a young teenager and you feel weird, you don't belong, you don't know what's going on. And it did great things for me too, because now I had a way to physically better myself. I also, at the same time, my uncle Marshall, was really involved in supplement companies, and he worked for Twin Lab, which I always found fascinating. I love talking to him about all the supplements and the things going on. He was at the Mr. Olympias and all that stuff, which I always thought was so cool. And I remember my uncle Marshall giving me these two like limited edition Arnold Schwarzenegger posters that still have, and my mom got them framed and matted for me, and they were on the wall, and it was like inspiration. One was him doing an easy bar curl, a bicep curl, and it's you just look at it, you hear he's like, "Ah, I need to push out it the last time, I need to go to my," like you get to see it in him. And the other was like a side double bicep thing, which was really cool. I've been a huge admirer of Arnold's life. I don't believe in or condone or support all the things he's done. He's obviously not a perfect person. So I'm lifting weights about 15, 16 years old. I decide I am going to become a professional wrestler, which in essence was a terrible idea. It was a really bad idea. To fast forward without too many details, I end up having a really bad experience in a wrestling ring with ephedrine, which was legal at the time. And if you remember hydroxycut or Xenadrim, they'd be like, take 16 pills a day and all this. And I did. And I had too much. I had a bad experience. I collapsed. I don't even remember everything that happened, but I know I was hooked up to EKGs after. I was okay. That being said, it traumatized me. I was out of the wrestling business. I couldn't even watch wrestling for a pretty long time. I do now. I enjoy it. I like watching the old stuff. And for someone who was already dealing with anxiety and panic attacks and that not fun stuff, this made it a lot worse. So, I got out of that and I was into weightlifting. I kept lifting and I yo-yo dieted for a while. And sometimes it'd be heavier, sometimes it'd be leaner, but I never quite got to that place that I wanted to be at, that I felt the best at, I felt I looked the best at, until the last maybe 5 years, 6 years. And the way I did this was I had tried all these other diets. I don't even like the word diet. I feel like a diet is everything you eat, versus something you go on for a period of time to lose weight. So, but I did try paleo and primal and keto and low carb. Remember the Atkins diet? Remember those Atkins bars? I'd eat those things all the time. They actually were good. Intermittent fasting, right? If you eat more than 4 hours a day, you're gonna die or whatever. I ate all of these ways, and it didn't work for me, and it might work for you. The best diet is the diet that works for you. But I landed on flex dieting. And flex dieting is basically because you're using the laws of thermodynamics. You are using calories in, calories out. If I eat more than I burn, I'm going to gain weight. If I eat less than I burn, I'm going to lose weight. If I'm eating about what I burn, I'm not going to lose or gain weight too much. I might a little bit because water fluctuations, be them carbohydrates or glycogen or just the sheer volume of food. But when you use this principle and you understand your triggers and that it's a mental exercise. It is a mental exercise to lose fat, to lose weight. It should not be an endurance exercise. You should not feel like you are going to die because you're starving yourself. That is not health. That's not wellness. That is a problem, right? And we hopefully you don't have that problem. And if you do, hopefully we can help fix it. Um, so the reason you don't hear about the calories in, calories out diet is because it's not very sexy. It's not very, well, if you just avoid pasta, the weight's gonna fall off. It's not if you eat the way that people ate 40,000 years ago, everything's gonna go the way you want. There's numerous reasons for this, and I wanna talk about them first because I want you to be able to identify why it hasn't worked for you in the past. That's just as important as what you're gonna do in the future to actually lose the weight. Stay with me here. So, the biggest problem people have that I see why they're not losing fat is that you don't wanna lose just weight. You don't wanna lose your muscle, you don't wanna lose your bones, you wanna lose fat. When people say they wanna lose weight, they wanna lose fat. I would imagine the majority of the time. I'm an actor. I'm sure there's some actors that, when they're like a Christian Bale, the machinist, he wanted to lose everything, right? He got down to a bone. If you hadn't seen it, it was scary. But you wanna lose fat. So the first problem we have to deal with here is carbohydrates. People have a gross misunderstanding of how carbohydrates work. Carbohydrates are not just your body's preferred source of fuel, which people will argue and disagree and all that stuff with me on. If you were on a low carbohydrate diet, your body will hold less water, much of that in your muscle, the way your muscle stores carbohydrates called glycogen, and you will lose weight from cutting carbohydrate. You will lose water. You will not lose fat from solely cutting carbohydrate. The problem is you just decided that your best results are with a low carb diet. So you cut out your carbs. You're going keto. You're going primal. You are on the Atkins diet. You feel great about it because you cut carbs and then in the first 3 days you lost 10 pounds. You didn't lose 10 pounds of fat. You lost water. What happens on weeks like 2, 3, and 4, and 5? You can't continually lose water, you will die. So it's like, it was working so good for me for 2, 3 weeks. The scale was dropping, then it stopped because you weren't losing any fat because you didn't have any idea how many calories you're actually consuming and you lost water weight. And it's like, gotcha. Got that book on the shelf there, like the blah, blah, blah diet. Well, it's bullshit. Look at wrestlers, meaning like not what I tried to do, stupid, but like collegiate wrestlers or boxers that are trying to get ready for a match. How are they weighing in at 180 pounds at the weigh-in to make their weight, and at the fight they're like 210, 220? It's water. I don't recommend you do that. It's really dangerous to dehydrate yourself to that point, but that's what you're doing on a low carb diet. You may not even be dehydrating yourself, but you are certainly losing water weight. So that's the first problem there. The second problem with diets that are elimination diets, much like eliminating a carb, or even if you're a vegan, a vegetarian, eliminating meat, or the whatever a Tarian, a Teskian, a Tara blah, 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 blah diet, is eliminating a food does not make you lose weight by just eliminating it. You must be in a caloric deficit. That's why initially on a flexible diet, initially, you don't have to do it forever. You have to count calories. You have to know how much you are eating. Once you know what you're eating, then you can decide what you want to do. Health foods are not always the best diet foods. You could find that you really love nuts and they're really healthy. I think immediately of macadamia nuts. The problem is I have big hands. And if I have 2 handfuls a day of macadamia nuts, even throughout the course of the day, if I kind of snack on them, that's easily like 1,000 calories. And that's the difference right there between gaining and losing 2 pounds a week. I mean, it's as simple as you're snacking on a health food because you heard someone tell you it's healthy, but you have no idea how many calories you're consuming. And there's a really easy way to fix this. Just pay attention to it for a little while. Have an understanding of what a tablespoon of peanut butter looks like. I promise you, if you think you're putting 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on your peanut butter and jelly, weigh it out. Don't look at it exclusively. Weigh it out and then put it on your sandwich. And you may be like, wait a minute, like that's all the peanut butter I get for those calories? Exactly. My most recent cut is like a fat loss phase, if you're maybe not familiar with that terminology. My most recent fat loss phase, I lost like 17, 18 pounds of fat. One of the reasons I was extremely successful this time around was because I really understood my triggers. I really understood what was going to leave me feeling satiated and not starving. And I was able to lose almost 20 pounds over the course of, I don't know how many months, um, probably like 4 or 5 months, by not even realizing I was dieting because I was eating foods that were more satiating, avoiding foods that were more calorically dense that weren't as satiating. For example, rather than having 2.5 tablespoons of peanut butter, which is like this much, and would not leave someone my size feeling very full, I don't think it would leave anyone feeling very full. I might have a bag of like Smart Pop out of the microwave, and that with the carbohydrates, the evil carbs, are going to leave you feeling full a lot longer. I have a 90-10 rule, which is really fun. I like the way it sounds, but it's not actually 90%, 10%. It's basically the majority of the time I'm eating healthy, whole foods that are really good for you and really nutrient rich, and they are responsible for vitality and they're good things. And the other 10% of the time, I am eating things that make my life easier, make me feel better with the things I'm eating, and make my day easier. So I have Smart Pop. I drink diet soda. Oh my God. Like everyone's turning off the podcast right now. They're like, I can't listen to this guy. I can't. He's having Diet Coke. Marcy, he's drinking Diet Coke. He's drinking Diet Coke. We cannot trust him. But you can trust that, I don't believe Diet Coke is the devil. And the reason is not because I'm so smart. All the studies that I've seen and the people I trust who talk about this, and there are a lot of people I watch. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. But it seems, unless you are consuming 20, 30, 40 cans of artificial sweetener a day in those cans of diet soda, you're probably okay. Think about this too. Um, let's say that you weren't okay with that artificial sweetener. Are you better off having that much just sugar in the can with the regular soda? I would guess that's probably worse. I don't know. I think that's a crummy experiment to do to someone because you probably give them diabetes real quickly. The next thing I want to talk about is when you're doing these things, how do you use the scale successfully? You do not weigh yourself once a week on Friday morning because that's your day, and then compare it to your next weigh in Friday morning. That's a mistake because you are going to see numbers that aren't accurate because your weight fluctuates every week because of your body water. Carbohydrates make you retain water, not always in a bad way. Don't get scared. You have glycogen in your muscle, which makes your muscles look better, which you want. Even if you're thinking, I don't want to look really muscular, I want to look toned, and I just want a huge booty, and I want it to be muscular. Well, you want glycogen in the booty. And then there's also the sheer volume of food that's going to adjust the scale for you. Something I always notice because I do weigh myself daily, and what you want to do is average the weights. That's your weekly weight when you average the weights. I notice I will order a salad that is a very healthy salad. I'll have some grilled chicken or whatever on it. Nothing like uh, crazy food. I even will use a dressing that I enjoy that the restaurant won't send because I don't know what the heck's in that. And I'll notice the next day my weight will go up like 3 or 4 pounds. It's not calories, it's that the volume of the salad, all of that volume is still in your body. And that will make the scale jump up. So if you're eating more foods that are satiating, the scale may go up, but if you're in a caloric deficit, you're losing fat. You're going to look better, which is why you want to not rely solely on the scale. You might not even initially want to use the scale. You want to look at yourself in the mirror, see how your clothes fit, and you can even do measurements, which is fine. If you want to measure, your waist or whatever else you want to measure, that's fine. You can use that from week to week. And I would say in combination with the scale, if you see two or three of those things are going in the right direction, but your weight is like, oh, my weight really hasn't moved. Stay the course. You got this. You're doing good. This is extremely noticeable when you are new to weight training or you haven't weight trained in a while. Because when you weight train, your muscles will pull glycogen into them. It will make you heavier and you will look better. So if you're new to weight training, not only is it easier to actually build muscle and lose fat at the same time, which we'll talk about in another episode, but you may be new to this whole thing where, okay, now you're eating away, you're in a deficit, and you're weight training maybe for the first time, or maybe you haven't done it consistently for a while, and the scale's staying the same. And that's okay because you're realizing, but my pants fit better, and I look better, and I feel better. You're doing the right thing. The scale progress is never linear. It is never linear, especially in in weight loss or muscle gain or whatever. This is not linear. This is something that's kind of a little bit more of a marathon because you want to keep the weight off. The other thing in fat loss that I want to mention, and one of the reasons that it's been as successful for me this time around, opposed to other times around, is this is very much, especially flex dieting, getting to know yourself. And knowing your triggers, know what's going to leave you feeling satiated and things like that. A huge thing for me has been the Ninja Creamy. I know friends and family are probably tired of me talking about this thing. Ninja does not sponsor this. This is something I use every single day. Ninja Creamy is basically a way to make healthier ice cream. I have this every single night. It's delicious. It allows me kind of to fall within my calorie goals. I'm going to leave you a link to the one that I got. I recommend if you love ice cream, you may want to look into getting this thing. It's really, really, really great. We'll have that in the show notes. Ninja Creamy as well. So now I'm going to give you step by step what I recommend you do if you want to lose fat now, today. And this is where you start. Number one, you need to know what you are eating. This is going to require a little bit of work. It will be worth it. Start by looking at what you're eating in a day and weighing it, writing it down, however you have to do it. So if you're gonna have some chicken, weigh the chicken. I had this much chicken. If you're gonna have a bowl of pasta, if you're gonna have this, everything you're consuming, let's understand what you are consuming. This is gonna do two things for you. First off, this is gonna give you an idea of how much food you're eating in a day. This is also gonna give you an idea of what portion size looks like. You're going to understand what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter looks like if you eat peanut butter. You're going to understand what 6 ounces of meat looks like if you, say, have a steak or something like that. That's really important. You don't have to do this forever unless you want to, but it's important to start there. Next thing you're going to do is you can use an online macronutrient calculator, and you use one of these calculators to figure out what your resting metabolic rate, your total daily energy expenditure is, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is going to give you, it's like a little survey online. I'll link one of those too, where this is free, where you're going to be able to see, okay, I'm this tall, I'm this age, I'm this sex, I'm kind of active. I'm not that active. I work out 2 times a week. I don't work out, whatever. It's going to let you know what your maintenance probably looks like. Meaning, how many calories does it take for you to just maintain? You're not gaining weight, you're not losing weight. Let's say, for the sake of example, that's 2,000 calories, and you decide you want to lose 1 pound a week, which is 3,500 calories, is a pound. You want to be in a 500 calorie a day deficit. So, step three is basically knowing what your deficit looks like. So, first, you've figured out what you're eating. Secondly, you now know what maintenance should look like. And third, you know what a deficit should look like. You could be in a less extreme deficit and be in a 250 calorie a day deficit, which would you only be losing half a pound a week. Don't say only though, that adds up a lot, especially you notice big differences. The next thing you really want to do is you want to make sure your diet is revolving around foods that you like and foods that you enjoy. You want to make sure that if you love popcorn and ice cream and things like that, like I do, you do not go become a carnivore where now you cannot have popcorn and ice cream because it's carbohydrates and dairy. I don't recommend doing that. The other thing we want to think about just a little bit here is what are the health implications of having some popcorn that is processed, right? Versus the health implications of being obese and the mortality rate of that. You may find that it's more dangerous to be overweight than it is to have some diet soda or some smart pop, which will help you stick to your diet. Another reason I recommend flex dieting, it works for me. Number four, we're going to monitor progress the way we talked about. We're not just going to use the scale, but if we are using the scale, we're going to weigh ourselves daily or every other day. We're going to average it. We're not going to freak out if our weight shoots up a few pounds, and we're not going to feel like, oh my God, how did I lose 3 pounds in a day? You didn't. You didn't burn an extra 10,500 calories in a day unless you ran like a triathlon and didn't eat anything. So that didn't happen. That is normal water weight fluctuation. And after that, the last step is you're just going to adjust your deficit based on your results and your goal. And I also recommend don't put yourself in a position where you are in a deficit forever. So even if your goal is to lose 100 pounds, lose X amount and keep checking in with yourself. And you may start to experience what is called diet fatigue, which is just kind of like you're irritable, you're starving all the time. You don't want to be in that place for a real long time. If you're not feeling that, you can keep going. But that could also mean you need to stop and go into maintenance. It also can mean you need a reverse diet, which we're also going to dig into in the future, I promise you. So listen to your body, see where you're at. Don't try to lose the 100 pounds all at once. In my opinion, give yourself a break. I do not recommend dieting for being in a deficit for too long because you're eventually going to hit some diet fatigue and your metabolism is going to slow as you're eating less. As you eat more, your metabolism is going to speed up. We're going to talk about that in reverse dieting and even maintenance mode, which is going to be really cool. So, this is the fat loss. This is the idea. You adjust from here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know where you're at in your fat loss journey. How much work do you have to do? Where are you headed? Is there a particular problem in your fat loss journey you want me to dig into here? That's what I'm here for. This show is for you. So, please let me know. All right.